I didn't find out she was lying because of a confession. I found out because she booked one hotel room to save money and forgot that confirmations come with names. Hey friends, please subscribe and turn on notifications, like this video, and leave a comment with your impressions. This will be a great help. Thank you. We never tire of reminding you. It's all thanks to you. I'm 34 and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm the kind of guy who likes plans, receipts, and clear expectations. Not because I'm controlling, but because I've learned that "we'll figure it out" is where money disappears and resentment grows. I'd been dating Melissa for just under 2 years. She was 31, worked in marketing for a regional healthcare group, and she was social in a way I'll never be. She could walk into a room, find people she knew, and leave with new invitations for the next month. I like that about her. I'm quieter. I work as a project manager for a construction firm. My life is schedules and change orders. Melissa had a college friend's wedding coming up in Nashville. It was a Friday ceremony with a Saturday brunch, so most people were turning it into a weekend. She asked me to go months ahead of time. I said yes, and I meant it. I even took Friday off so we could drive up early, settle in, and not be exhausted at the rehearsal dinner. From the start, we agreed on something simple. We'd split travel costs. I didn't mind paying more for comfort, but I wasn't interested in being the default wallet, while someone else called it teamwork. Melissa suggested a nicer hotel close to the venue. I looked it up. It was expensive, but it was within walking distance, and I hate the stress of rideshares after events. I told her I was fine with it, as long as we booked early. She said she would handle the reservation because she had points and a membership discount. That was our first mistake, not because points are bad, but because when one person handles something, the other person stops seeing details, and details are where people hide things. 2 weeks before the wedding, I asked her to forward me the confirmation so I could put the address into my calendar. She laughed and said, "You and your calendars. It's Nashville, not outer space." Then she said she'd send it later. Later never came. The week of the trip, I was packing on Wednesday night when she came over with a garment bag and that excited energy people get before a trip. She said, "Good news, I got us a deal." I asked what that meant. She said I booked one room. I looked at her for a second because we were a couple. One room is normal, so I said, "Okay." She rolled her eyes like I was slow. "No, I mean one room for all of us." All of us wasn't a phrase I remembered agreeing to. Who is us? She said it like it was obvious. Me, you, and Kara. Kara was her best friend from work. I'd met her twice. She was loud, opinionated, and always called me sir, in this sarcastic tone like I was a substitute teacher. I tolerated her because Melissa loved her, but I didn't invite her into my life. I said, "Why would Kara be in our hotel room?" Melissa waved her hand. "To save money. She's coming to the wedding and hotels are insane. She'll sleep on the pullout, it's fine." I don't like being surprised, and I really don't like being volunteered. I asked, "When did this become the plan?" She shrugged. "This week. Kara's going through a rough patch, okay. She needs a fun weekend and it's cheaper." I said, "Cheaper for who?" She smiled like that was a cute question. "For everyone. We're splitting it 3 ways." That was the second mistake, not the splitting, the assumption that my boundaries were a negotiable coupon. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Melissa, I agreed to go to a wedding with you. I didn't agree to share a room with your coworker." She immediately went defensive. "You're being dramatic. It's just sleeping." "It's privacy," I said, "and it's our trip as a couple. I was looking forward to time with you." She sighed like I was exhausting her. "You're making this about you. Kara can't afford a hotel by herself, and you're a grown man. You can handle a pull-out couch existing in the room." I had a choice in that moment. I could argue in circles, or I could focus on what was practical. "What hotel?" I asked. She said the name quickly, like she didn't want me to think too hard about it. I said, "Forward me the confirmation tonight. I want to see what we're actually paying and what the room setup is." She frowned. "Why do you need to see it? Don't you trust me?" That word, trust, people throw it out like a trap. If you ask for basic information, they call it mistrust. If you stay quiet, they call it trust, and then they do whatever they want. "I trust you," I said. "I still need the details." She didn't send it that night. Thursday morning, while I was at work, I got a text from Melissa. "Kara is so excited. She says thanks for being chill about it." I stared at my phone and realized something important. Melissa had already sold the story. In her version, I was on board, and any hesitation now would make me the villain. I texted back, I'm not chill about it. I asked you to send the confirmation. Please send it. She didn't answer for 2 hours, then replied, stop stressing. I'll show you when we get there. That was the third mistake, the choice to keep me in the dark until I was trapped in the situation. I took my lunch break and called the hotel. I didn't have a confirmation number, but I gave them my name and asked if there were any reservations under it for Friday. There weren't. Then I asked if there were any reservations for Melissa's full name. The front desk employee was polite but firm. I'm sorry, sir. We can't confirm guest details unless you're listed on the reservation. I said, I understand. Can you tell me if there's a reservation under her name with multiple guests? Same answer, policy. So I did the one thing I could do without crossing a line. I booked my own refundable room at a different hotel 5 minutes away, not as revenge, as a safety net. If I showed up and the situation was worse than she was saying, I wouldn't be standing in a lobby at 10 p.m. with nowhere to go. We drove to Nashville Friday morning. The car ride was tense in that fake way where someone talks too much to avoid reality. Melissa played music and chatted about the wedding like nothing was wrong. I nodded and answered when I needed to, but my stomach felt tight. We got to the hotel around 2 p.m. Kara was already in the lobby, sitting with a coffee like she lived there. She stood up when she saw us and screamed Melissa's name, hugging her like they hadn't seen each other in years. Then Kara turned to me and said, look who made it, our third roommate. I didn't laugh, I just said, hey, Kara. Melissa checked in. I watched her at the front desk. She handed over her ID. The clerk typed, smiled, and then said, just confirming, 1 room, 1 king bed, reserved for 2 guests. My chest went cold. Melissa smiled too fast. Yes, that's correct. Kara leaned over and said, and I'm the third, I'm with them. The clerk looked unsure. I can add your name as an additional guest, ma'am, but the room occupancy. Melissa cut in, it's fine, she's not staying, she's just visiting. Kara's face twitched, like she wasn't expecting that. Then the clerk printed the little sleeve with the keycards, and I saw it. The reservation name was Melissa +1 or anything like that. It was Melissa and another name. Not mine's. A man's name. I saw it for half a second before Melissa slid the paper away, but half a second is enough when you're used to scanning job sites for missing numbers. I didn't say anything in the lobby. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want the wedding weekend to turn into a public argument with her friend watching like it was entertainment. We went up to the room. It was exactly what the clerk said. 1 king bed, no pullout, no second bed, just 1 bed, 1 bathroom, 1 luggage rack, and that awkward chair by the window that hotels pretend is seating. Kara stood in the doorway and said, where am I sleeping? Melissa laughed, but it sounded forced. We'll figure it out. You can crash on the floor with some blankets, or we can ask for a cot. Kara looked at me like I was supposed to protest on her behalf. I didn't, because the bigger issue was Kara. The bigger issue was why my girlfriend booked a king bed for 2 guests and put another man's name on it. Melissa started unpacking like nothing was happening. She hung her dress in the closet. She hummed. She was performing normal. I took my phone out and said, Melissa, I saw the reservation slip. Who is listed with you? Her shoulders went stiff for a half second. Then she turned and said, what are you talking about? I saw a name, I said, a guy's name. Kara's eyes widened. Wait, what? Melissa smiled like she was amused. Oh my God, it's my brother. You don't have a brother, I said. Silence dropped into the room like a heavy blanket. Kara slowly sat on the edge of the bed, then stood right back up like she remembered she wasn't sure she was allowed. Melissa's face changed, not into guilt, into irritation, like I had just ruined her plan by noticing it. It's not what you think, she said. I kept my voice even, then tell me what it is. She looked at Kara, can you give us a minute? Kara didn't move. I'm not getting kicked out when I just got here. Also, what is happening? Melissa's jaw tightened. Kara, please. Kara looked at me like she was asking permission. I didn't give it. I just said, you can stay. I'm not doing secrets. Melissa exhaled hard. Fine, it's Ethan. My heart didn't race, it went quiet, that quiet you get when something finally makes sense in the worst way. Ethan was her ex, the one she claimed was ancient history, the one whose name came up in stories like, he was immature, and it didn't work, and I learned my lesson. Kara blinked. Ethan is coming. Melissa said, he's already here. I asked, so you booked a room with your ex? She threw her hands up. Yes, and before you freak out, it's because he had points. He got a discount. I was saving money. I stared at her. You were saving money by putting your ex on the reservation. It's not like that, she snapped. He wasn't even supposed to be in the room. He was just helping. Kara said, helping how? Melissa ignored her and looked at me. It's one weekend. The wedding hotel was insane. Ethan offered to book it with his membership, and I didn't see the harm. We're adults. I said, you didn't tell me. I knew you'd be weird, she said. Weird, I repeated. She leaned forward like she was explaining something to a child. You get insecure. You always need details. I didn't want to fight. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I just asked a question that mattered. Where is Ethan staying? She hesitated too long. Kara's mouth opened slightly, like she already knew the answer and didn't want to say it. Melissa finally said, he's in town. He has friends. I said, that's not an answer. Melissa snapped, he's not sleeping here, okay? He's just on the reservation. I walked to the desk, picked up the sleeve with the keycards, and slid the paper out. The clerk had printed 2 keycards. 2. Not 3. Not 1. 2. I held it up, 2 keycards for a king bed, 2 guests on the reservation, you and Ethan. Melissa's eyes flashed, give me that. I didn't. When was he planning to show up? She went red in the face. You're embarrassing me. Kara stood back, suddenly very quiet. I said no, you did that when you decided to build a weekend around a lie. Melissa lowered her voice, but it was sharp. You're blowing this up, we're here for a wedding. I nodded, we are, and I'm not going to ruin it. I'm going to handle this like an adult. I took my bag and walked to the door. Melissa said, where are you going? I'm checking into my own hotel, I said. She laughed once bitterly. Oh, so you're punishing me. I'm protecting myself, I said. There's a difference. Kara said, Melissa, what did you do? Melissa shot her a look. Stay out of it. I left without slamming the door. In the elevator, my hands were steady. In the lobby, I breathed normally. Outside, the air was cold and clean. I walked 2 blocks to the other hotel I'd booked earlier. The front desk clerk there smiled, took my ID, and handed me a keycard like I was just another guest. A quiet room, 1 bed, my name on the reservation, no surprises. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at my phone. Melissa had already texted, this is insane, come back. Then you're acting like I cheated. Then you always do this, you make everything a problem. I didn't respond right away. I opened my email and searched for anything from that first hotel. Nothing. She'd never forwarded it because if she did, the lie would have collapsed days earlier. An hour later, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer, it went to voicemail. It was Ethan. His voice was calm, almost smug. He said, hey man, it's Ethan. Melissa said you're upset. Look, it's not a big deal, it's just a room. I'm not trying to steal your girl, we're just friends. Friends don't book hotel rooms under each other's names. I saved the voicemail, not to use as a weapon, just because I've learned that when people start rewriting events, the truth becomes slippery. That evening, I put on a suit and went to the rehearsal dinner, not for Melissa, for myself, because I refused to be the guy who melts down publicly. I refused to let someone else's bad choices drag me into chaos. Melissa arrived with Kara. She avoided my eyes at first, then finally came over and whispered, can we talk? I said, after. She stared at me like I was being cruel. After what? After dinner, I said. This isn't the place. During dinner, Melissa was stiff. Kara barely spoke. I caught her looking at Melissa with a kind of disappointment that felt heavier than anger. After, Melissa cornered me near the parking lot. So what, you're just leaving me here? I said, you're not alone. Kara's here. Your friends are here. Your ex is here, apparently. Her eyes flashed. Stop saying ex like that. He's not even a thing. Then why is he calling me? I asked. She froze. I said he left me a voicemail. She swallowed. He shouldn't have done that. That's your concern, I asked, not why he felt comfortable doing it. Melissa's voice shook with frustration. I didn't do anything wrong. I booked a room. It's a hotel. You're acting crazy. I kept my tone neutral. You didn't book a room with me. You booked a room with Ethan. You didn't tell me. You tried to bring Kara into it to make it seem normal. You tried to keep me from seeing the confirmation. That is not how someone behaves when everything is innocent. She scoffed, so you're dumping me over a hotel room. I nodded once. I'm checking out of a relationship where I'm lied to, treated like an obstacle, and called insecure for noticing facts. She stepped closer. It was to save money. I looked at her. I would have paid the difference for a room in my name. I would have paid for 2 rooms if Kara needed one. I'm not cheap. I'm not fragile. I'm just not stupid. Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice was still sharp. You're going to ruin everything. I'm not ruining anything, I said. Your choices did. I'm just responding. She whispered, you're embarrassing me. I said, Melissa, I'm standing here talking quietly while you're the one who booked a hotel room with your ex. If you feel embarrassed, that's your conscience trying to wake up. She stared at me like she hated me for being calm. The next day was the wedding. I went. I sat with people I barely knew. I smiled when appropriate. I congratulated the bride and groom. I didn't drink much. I danced once with an aunt who was determined to pull everyone onto the floor. Melissa stayed across the room most of the night. Ethan showed up late, wearing a suit that didn't fit right, and I watched him scan the room like he was checking for a reaction. He caught my eye and gave me a small nod, like we were in some kind of competition. I looked away. After the wedding, I left early and went back to my hotel. Melissa texted me a long message about how I was cold, how I was making her feel unsafe emotionally, how I never trusted her, how I was throwing away 2 years. I didn't argue. I didn't write a paragraph back. I replied with one line, we will talk when we're home. Please don't come to my hotel. She replied, wow. That was the end of that night. Sunday morning, I checked out. On my receipt, my name was printed clearly. That detail mattered more than I expected because it felt like proof that reality still existed. On the drive back to Charlotte, Melissa called 3 times. I didn't answer, not out of cruelty, out of control. I didn't want to do a breakup conversation on the interstate. I wanted it in a place where I could end it cleanly. When I got home, I did what I always do when something big happens. I made a list, not of revenge, of logistics. Melissa didn't live with me full-time, but she had a key. She had clothes at my place. She had her streaming subscriptions logged into my TV. She had her name on a couple of shared reservations for an upcoming trip to Asheville. She also owed me money for concert tickets I'd fronted 2 months earlier. None of it was dramatic, but endings aren't about drama. They're about disentangling. That afternoon, I sent her a text. I'm home. You can come pick up your things tomorrow at 6 p.m. I'll have everything packed. Please bring my key. She replied, so that's it. You're breaking up with me over nothing. I didn't engage with nothing. I replied, over lying and disrespect, tomorrow at 6. At 5:45 the next day, I put her things in boxes by the front door. I didn't toss anything. I didn't damage anything. I even taped a note on top of the box with a list. Closet shelf, bathroom drawer, kitchen cabinet. At 6:05 she arrived. She walked in like she still belonged there, like she expected me to apologize for being difficult. I stayed calm, key. She held it up but didn't hand it over. We need to talk. I said we can talk, hand me the key first. She stared at me, are you serious? Yes, I said. She dropped it into my palm. That small piece of metal felt like a door closing. She looked around at the boxes. You packed my stuff like I'm a stranger. I packed your stuff like someone who's leaving, I said. Her eyes filled again. You're so cold. I shook my head slightly. I'm steady, there's a difference. She took a breath. Ethan and I didn't sleep together. I believed she wanted me to believe that. I also knew something. The bedroom wasn't the only betrayal. The betrayal was the willingness to lie, to manipulate, to turn me into the problem, and to build a plan around my ignorance. I said whether you slept with him or not, you booked a room with him, hid it from me, and tried to trap me into accepting it. That tells me who you are under pressure. She snapped, "You're acting like I committed a crime." "No," I said, "I'm acting like I'm choosing what I tolerate." She shook her head and laughed through her tears. "So you're just done?" "Yes," I said, "I don't want to live in a relationship where the truth is a negotiation." She pointed at the boxes. "You're really throwing away everything." I didn't raise my voice. "You threw it away when you decided saving a little money was worth risking everything we had." She looked at me like she wanted me to break, like she needed me to yell so she could say I was the unstable one. When I didn't, her anger shifted into something else: uncertainty. She said, quieter, "I didn't think you'd actually leave." And there it was, the real confession. I nodded once. "That's the problem." She grabbed the boxes and carried them to her car in silence. On her last trip, she stopped at the door and said, "So you're never going to forgive me?" I said forgiveness isn't the same as staying. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then she left. That should have been the end, but people like Melissa don't like clean endings. Clean endings don't give them room to rewrite the story. 2 days later, I got a request from her on a payment app for Nashville hotel split. I stared at it. She wanted me to pay for the hotel room she booked with Ethan. I didn't decline with a rude message. I didn't send a paragraph. I simply hit decline and then sent one text. "I didn't agree to pay for a room booked under you and Ethan. Do not send me requests like that again." She replied, "Wow, you're really going to be petty." I didn't answer. That weekend, I got a message from Kara. Just one line: "I'm sorry, I didn't know. I would have never agreed to that if I did." I believed her. Kara was annoying, but I didn't think she was a liar. I replied, "Thank you, I appreciate you saying that." Then she sent another message. For what it's worth, Ethan was acting like it was already his weekend with her. It was weird. That made my stomach turn, but it also confirmed what I already knew. The details don't matter as much once someone shows you their character. In the following weeks, Melissa tried different angles. She sent a long email about how she grew up having to be resourceful and how saving money was a survival habit, like that excused lying. She sent a message blaming me for being emotionally unavailable, like her deception was a symptom of my personality. She even sent one apology that sounded almost real, until it ended with, "I hope you can take responsibility too." I didn't respond to any of it. Instead, I handled my life. I changed my locks. I removed her access to shared subscriptions. I canceled the Asheville reservation that was under my card and forwarded her the cancellation confirmation. I screenshotted the voicemail from Ethan and saved it in a folder labeled Nashville, not because I wanted to show it to anyone, but because I refused to be gaslit out of reality. A month later, I ran into Melissa at a grocery store. She looked surprised to see me, like she thought I would be hiding. She said, "You look fine." "I am," I said. She studied my face, maybe searching for regret. "So you really don't miss me?" I said, "I miss who I thought you were." She flinched like I slapped her, but I didn't say it to be cruel. It was just true. She opened her mouth, then finally asked, "Are you seeing someone?" "No," I said, "I'm just living." She nodded like she didn't understand how someone could be okay without her. Then she said, almost softly, "Ethan and I are trying again." There it was again, the truth arriving late, like it was always scheduled. I didn't react. I didn't insult him or her. I just said, "I hope you both get what you're looking for." She looked angry at that, not because it was rude, but because it didn't give her anything to fight. She walked away. In the car, I sat for a moment before driving home. I thought about how close I came to walking into that hotel room and forcing myself to tolerate the situation because it was easier than making a decision. I thought about how often people stay because leaving feels embarrassing. But here's the thing no one tells you: staying in a lie is more humiliating than walking away from one. She booked one hotel room to save money. What she really saved was the trouble of telling the truth, and I finally realized that if someone is willing to cut corners with honesty, they'll cut corners with everything else too. So I checked out of the hotel, and I checked out of the relationship, and for the first time in a long time, I slept in a room where my name was the only one that mattered. If you've ever been put in a situation where you were expected to accept disrespect just to keep the peace, tell me what you did. I read the comments, and I'd like to hear how you handled it.